Look.
What, you're a movie star now?
Yeah. Here, it's okay. I can autograph your yeah, exactly. All right. Well, welcome to the neighborhood. Oh well. So this is one of our wings. There's 7 wings in the building. Just encountered one of my neighbors, an artist. As you can see, this is our main hallway. There's a loading zone over there. And here's our price elevator. Costs us money once every so often, but it's definitely useful. Hello. Exit for the big theater. The big theater's over here. We rent out to nonprofits, and we have a great theater production that rents that space. It's like this is the real deal. And here we are. So we're going to do a little painting now.
Great. Well, Javier Manrique, thank you for taking the time to be on the show. This is episode 4 of the show. And just thank you for taking the time. And I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for contacting me. I'm curious about your project, and I just want to welcome you to my studio.
Yeah, and I knew you had told me that you lived with an art community, but I'm excited to show some of the shots that we'll be filming after to the viewers, because this space in particular on the outside doesn't give the impression of an artist community. It kind of just looks like another building that maybe there would be some manufacturing or shipping going on inside. But then when you come inside, it feels like an art community.
Yeah, it's still very much a factory. I mean, it was the American Can Company originally, and when people took over this place, back in the day of communes, in the late 60s, early 70s, it was pretty much taken over. It was abandoned, and since then it's been slowly been put together And fortunately, in the 80s, it was incorporated, so we were able to stay. And so I'm very thankful to the pioneers, I call them, which were all these anarchists, artists, theater people, singers, drug addicts, you name it, that took over the building. And since all the other communes have pretty much are gone, this one's still standing after 50 some years.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I'd love to get into more of the details of, actually the people here and how long you've lived here and the kind of the backstory of how you've made this place your studio of choice. But to get started, I actually wanted to, before we get into that, start with just kind of generally, what are you up to nowadays? Is there anything that is new for you that's been going on in the last days or weeks in the past?
Yeah. Just today I was in touch with someone in Mexico City. I'm involved with the next project with the Bank of Mexico, and every year or every other year they have a project, and it evolves around money. And in this case, you have to work with in some form, whether it's on printmaking or painting or books. In this case, we have to work with the box, and this box has they give you all the shredded bits of bills, and you have to work with it, and so we're basically working with money to produce a piece of art, and this is in a box now. And I have some ideas, but I have to finish this idea in March. So I'm going down to Mexico City soon, and I will. And since I'm in Mexico, I will also be teaching a workshop, a fresco workshop, at this old hacienda in the state of Veracruz. So I'll be going there to teach at La Ceiba Gráfica, it's called. It's a beautiful place. And this will be the second workshop I give, and it's a really unique place because it's some of it's restored, but a lot of it is in ruins, and so we're doing this ephemeral frescoes, even though frescoes can last for forever because of its characteristics. But we're going to be working on these walls that are in these ruins, and so that should be interesting. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a lot that you have on your plate.
Yeah. Let's see what else. And getting back in April, there's the art fair, and I'm working with the gallery then, and we're should have some work in the art fair. And in July, I have a solo show in Mexico City. So that's what's coming up.
For those who don't know, because I know you identify on the Instagram as being a fresco artist specifically, correct?
Well, the name just stuck. I had FrescoManiac.
Yeah.
Because I had a artist residence at the De Young Museum in 2013, 2012, 2013. And it was called FrescoMania Bay Area and Beyond. And I had been teaching the fresco technique, or the medium, at CCA in 2005 to 2007, and at the Art Institute later. And so I submitted my project to the De Young, and that's what it was called, FrescoMania Bay Area and Beyond. And then I just kept FrescoManiac. And so I dab into fresco. It's a knowledge that it's once you acquire it, it's hard to let go. It really teaches you a lot about longevity and chemistry and how things work. And going back to Joseph Campbell, it takes you back to the myths of where everything came from, the caves.
Yeah.
So,
for those who aren't familiar with them, would you mind just describing what they are?
What's that? Frescos.
Fresco. I had to look it up to.
Oh, okay.
Remember.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember at the artist residence at the De Young, I asked the fellow fresco painter, Danny Purtill, who's now back in his country in England. But he was here for a while, and I said, Danny, I need some help. Let's do some frescoes that people can identify, so people know they've always been around them. And so we did reproductions of like Renaissance frescoes. I did some Diego Rivera frescoes and pre-Hispanic frescoes and even Tibetan frescoes, I think. And so it's paint. Basically, it's painting on limestone, or pretty much like what happened in the caves, where, again, I'll go back to that because it's so important, that that's where woman started to try to figure out what was life, right? And so it's like they started painting and to try to come up with some type of myth on the creation of life or why we're here. And so they started doing all these paintings in these caves. You know, Lascaux is very famous, and there's others in Spain. They're all over the place, but that's pretty much the same technique. Inside you had this limestone that was, and you could actually draw on it with anything, whether it was charcoal or dirt. What works really well is that, and minerals, because that's what the pigments are made of. And then it just calcifies and becomes permanent. And so that's what you have in the walls. And that's pretty much the same what we know as buon fresco, which is the Italian medium. And many parts in the world paint on limestone as well. In India, they have some ancient Buddhist caves as well, painted. And here in Latin America, or in Mexico and Central America, the Mayas had developed different medium techniques to paint with limestone or lime. And lime, you can pretty much get it, limestone, from bones from, I don't know, I'm getting too technical here, but it's in San Francisco. It's a great place to go out and look at some frescoes, and it's the same medium, technically, that I described from the caves. But if you go to the Beach Chalet, the Art Institute, or there's this great painter that I follow, Lucien Bloch, who was here in the 60s and 70s and 50s, and she has some frescoes in different churches. And it's a beautiful medium. Coit Tower is another one. Fresco had a resurgence in the U.S. After the Depression. That was became part of the work projects that they had for artists. And fresco flourished, pretty much taking the example from the Mexican Revolution, or the post-revolution, where the arts had a big surge in Mexico, and they were doing a lot of frescoes. So I don't know if that answered.
Oh yeah, definitely. It went into great detail. I liked it.
Okay.
It was a great explanation. Is it the act of putting a medium on stone that makes something a fresco, or is it more the medium itself, or the material itself?
It's really the material. It is the act. The act. You only have according to what the climate is like. See, it really tunes you into the moment, because if it's a warm day and dry, you have less hours to work. You have like 6 hours for a 4x5 area, feet. And if you're living in Russia or in some cold weather, you have 12 hours. And you do have frescoes in Christian Orthodox frescoes, which are beautiful in those regions. And I became friends with these monks when I was teaching fresco at CCA.
Oh, wow.
And they're Christian Orthodox, Russian. And they've done this beautiful church in Santa Rosa, and it's just full of frescoes, traditional frescoes. I mean, it's all traditional because the iconography is, it's pretty much has its set way of doing them. It's elongated figures, and and I learned a lot from them. I was able to actually sleep inside the church when they were painting frescoes in there, and all night I went there. They had 3 monks. One of them was preparing the lime or the materials. The other one was plastering. And then early in the morning, the painter came in and started to work. It's a long process, but and it's pretty much permanent if the weather is right.
Were these monks artists, like monks and artists, or just assisting?
No, they were artists. The two, the third one, they were showing him. That's why he was learning on just preparation. But the other two had studied in art school, and through their life's journey, they became monks. And they're up in Lake County. They have their monastery, but they have there are many industries. There are micro industries. And one of them was painting frescoes, and which they went ahead and did in France and different parts. And they also did icons, painted icons in tempera painting, and also a mosaic, as well as they would olives. Yeah, they would also squeeze the olives for their oil for different people who grew olives. So they making it work.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and for those who are just like myself, who kind of had to like refresh myself and on what frescoes are and stuff, the very first artworks ever were frescoes, correct?
Well,
the cave paintings.
They call it art now, but it had its function different. It's the art has evolved as far as how it's used, but definitely it was the paintings, and that was visual, the earliest. But it's interesting because in the caves, it wasn't like flat, and so they were already working in 3-dimensional areas, so that's actually very sculptural as well. And then the images, you start developing certain iconography and in different parts, and myths. I mean, the frescoes from the Mayans are very different than the ones in the Mediterranean or in Tibet or India. Yeah, but they're all basically done on limestone. It's just like it calcifies.
Yeah.
The pigment.
Right.
And the pigments have to. It's a limited palette because it has to withstand the lime reaction, which tends to burn. Back then, they didn't have problems. They knew which pigments to use. They came from the earth. They were rocks. They were like just different minerals, different colors.
Yeah, when I came in, I saw the work right here of the fresco, and it stood out among everything else just because it was so different. So that's one of your works.
That one was done by my students at CCA.
Oh, one of your students?
A group of them. It was one of their group projects. They did different ones from different regions of different parts of the world, and so they understood that this went on in different parts of the world. And and that one you're looking at is the bulls from Lascaux. And they're flat there, but they weren't in real life.
Yeah, right. It reminds me of some of the earlier ones that, like, I was referring to the very first ones. There's the hands, right? And then there's also some which are just like very faint cows and other animals.
Yeah, there's a movie by a German director. He's what's his name? He did this one on the caves in France. Those were pretty much
what's his name? He did that movie with, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting all these. It'll come, but he did this wonderful movie of this, I guess they were discovered in pretty recent, these cave paintings. And one thing he highlighted was that this one painter, or the person who was doing them, had a crooked finger. And so his finger would show up in different parts. And I don't know, all these little clues, just like finding the fingerprint of Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, or finding in the Detroit Diego Rivera frescoes, finding a chile seed when they were restoring. They just take you to that moment, which is wonderful. It means we're still connected to that, which is, that's why it was, when my friend said, do you want to learn fresco? At first I said no. And then after that, I knew it was a commitment, because it just like draws you in, where there's just so much that it takes you. It's not just like painting on a line, on plaster. It starts to tune you in to much more.
And for those who are just learning about you through this video, what are all your mediums that kind of encompass your main body of work?
Well, I think it's mostly visual now. I do like sculpture, but I do very little of that now. But mostly printmaking and painting. I think those are two. At one time of my life, I was known as a photographer, and I still do some type of photography, but it's called photo-based. It's using photography as a way of talking or expressing without necessarily taking photographs, getting conceptual, right? Yeah. So it's mostly visual artists.
Mostly visual, yeah. And specifically stuff like this, right? I mean, the acrylic and the oil and.
Yes. I guess the evolution has taken me to more color fields. These are actually an exception, these two, because they're recent.
Right. And
I'm pursuing this story that my mother told me years ago, and with dresses. So that's the form. But I'm pretty much painting with color vibrations, color relations, and not necessarily with form. These are an exception. But what I'm intrigued with is just what color can produce in our own emotions. And that takes us to, like, okay, I'm doing the work of the paintings, but color affects people differently. So that painting isn't necessarily going to be the same for the other person. I mean, usually not. I mean, unless you're doing a narrative of a painting, and which I don't do narratives. I do more. I like the idea that color is going to affect you, and so color relationships and color fields, which is what I'm doing. But the graphic work or the printmaking is different. It's not so much as the space, but of time or chronology. And there I still use figurative images, and in graphic work I do everything from woodcut to lithographs to aqua tints, linoleum, clays as well, which is digital images. So,
you mentioned color, the term color vibrations a few times from just the last hour of us hanging out. Does that differ from? Does that fall under like color theory as a specific term, or is that a term that you yourself use?
Oh, it does. I'm sure that's where I got it.
Okay.
But it's, I wouldn't consider myself a color theorist, even though I work with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's, I don't know, color's everywhere, and color and light. So I'm, you know, I can't say I'm a scientist on this. It's very much color and light and analogies of that, tones, sounds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it's almost like the color is the outcome of all the different stimulus that are outside.
Mm-hmm.
Whether, like I said, sound, and I mean all kinds, from literature, poetry, music, certain instruments, all that. I mean, one of the biggest enlightenments that I had was being inside an MRI, and I mean, I was just rocking inside one of those, and I started seeing color and transferring, consciously transferring it. Once I realized these vibrations are high or low, and so you could do that with color. And then each color has range, so it's high or low.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, all these years I've been painting, so that's pretty much how I express that.
Yeah. You just outed yourself as being enlightened, by the way. Color enlightened.
Thank goodness. I like that term.
Yeah, no, it is a cool term, color enlightened, but also color vibrations. I had never heard that before. So I wanted to get clarified on that, just because your work is so emphasizing color as a big part of it.
Well, the vibration that you create is, I've been doing it with drops of paint, and from far away you get this idea that, oh, that's yellow, or a blue, or whatever, what color I'm working on, a gray. Mm-hmm. And as you get closer, you see that it's not flat. It just you start seeing all the different variations of that gray, or that yellow, or that red. And so it literally starts to vibrate. So, yeah, mm-hmm. All the different reflections of light, mm-hmm. you know, which is interesting. Just reflections of light. We were talking about fresco and now acrylic and oil. It works different with fresco. Fresco, just because of the physical chemistry of the fresco, the light bounces back. It's like crystals. And so it bounces back. Here it's almost like it's emanating from it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go back to talking about frescoes. I talked too much about it already.
Yeah. No. I am trying to be thinking about time, but yeah, I mean, we're doing a good pace right now.
Okay, you're the lead.
No, yeah. Would you describe your art with any specific style? Like, would you categorize it as a style, or do you prefer to keep it?
That's my tractor.
Oh, that's the tractor. I was picking it up. I thought it was picking something up outside.
Yeah, that's the John Deere tractor clock.
Nice.
Well, style, I guess it would depend, because the painting is color fields. That's what I like. It's working with color. But the graphic work, which recently I also did some in Oaxaca. I did this collaboration doing a tapiz with an artisan down there, and that turned out to be very graphic as well because of my drawing on this wool weaving that we produced. So that's different. It's like, so color fields on one side, then we have the graphic work. I mean, I mean, that's good to have these two classifications, but it's always interesting because you have other interests and your mind wanders, my mind wanders, and so it's not going to stay. It's like, okay, I'm X, but before you know it, I'm X and Y or X and B, and so it wanders. But just to bring people on board, you say, yes, I'm a color field painter or abstract painter, and then they get on board, and then you can like take them where you want. Fortunately, you know, and the graphic work, it's more of a there is narrative and chronology of daily life there. So and there I do have the luxury of using form and figure, but at one time I thought, oh boy, do I have to define myself? Like, do I always have to be abstract? Do I always have to? Not really, not anymore. I'm the same person. I'm only one, but I can encompass that.
Are there any themes that you draw inspiration for, or try to express, in your work, in particular? Because especially with someone who's abstract, it's very open to interpretation. What kind of idea or theme you're trying to get across, if anything?
Tell you what, could you start from the beginning and the question?
Yeah. The question pretty much is, like, in your own words, what major themes is your work about, if anything? And then I have a list here of popular themes that I just pulled from the internet, like religion, history, the natural world, politics, everyday life, conflict, emotions.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad we spoke about, or I talked about the difference between the painting and the graphic work, because that is different as far as themes go. It's easier with the painting just to say out there that it's emotions and what that's really what interests me. These two paintings here that I have on my right, the two dresses, I've been exploring this idea that the story that my mother once told me about a dress, and I haven't gotten to her dress, so I've been producing these, and I kind of go where the painting tells me, and so which goes to the color field type of work. It's which is kind of cool, because it's like I don't have to like have a fixed idea of what it's going to look like, and go with whatever the painting calls. I mean, it sounds abstract painting, but one thing that I try is not to impose too much on the painting, but rather have it lead me somewhere. So a lot of that at the beginning is just waiting and looking and painting. Even if you change it, it's just important to be engaged, what they call being in the zone. And then it should take care of itself. If it doesn't work, the painting doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you got to do it. And a lot of times you don't know if it works, because it's too fresh, and you have to put it out there, I think, to get to see if it has a dialogue. If you know if it doesn't work from the get-go, just tear it up or something. Don't put it out there. But if something that you think that you're not sure, but it has quality, technical quality, conceptual quality, then put it out there. Because sometimes I don't know if the work is good, but it's good enough to put out there. With the graphic work, the themes there are more of everyday life, a lot of psychological, like the states are like looked into in in the graphic work, it's more of something you could read as a narrative of some sort. Yeah, this young writer that I worked with in Mexico, she wrote in one of my catalogs, just it's a graphic work catalog, and she said, made that distinction, how the graphic work has more to do with time and things that happen in time, as opposed to the painting, which is your place in space, and which I liked. So,
yeah, I'd like to kind of transition now into more of your personal life, going back to your childhood and young adulthood, if that's right. Yeah. There's a lot of things that really shape a person, who they are, and one of those things that is outside of the control of every person really is where they're born. And so I'm curious to know what you think about the place that you were born and where you grew up and how that shaped you as a person.
yeah, it's interesting. When I look at someone's work, sometimes I'm not too interested in their life. Later, if I'm intrigued by their work. But, I think the one thing that stuck to me when I was a kid is just fantasy, I was born in Tijuana in Mexico, and we immigrated to the U.S. when I was 7. But a lot of that fantasy started just early on, walking to school in the first grade in Mexico, and where I just started just getting out of myself and pretending from point A to point B in the midst that I was a spy, or I was doing things like going through fences, and that, I think, in a way, maybe it was a way of I don't know, if isolating or protecting oneself from the outside world. We were a big family, so there was a lot my parents had to deal with. And then we immigrated, and then that transition, it just never dawned on me that there was like a big border, even though I had to learn English like really quick. But I just did. I assimilated really quick. And so this whole thing about not finding a distinction of being in point A and point B, they were different. Later on in my first Chicano studies class, I realized some of the things I had been through, but I'd never really took them in mind, like crossing the tracks and things like that, visiting my friends on the other side. There were no tracks. It's just like this mental track of this town that was slowly having its white flight, and I was just going back and forth into seeing my friends who I didn't care what color they were. And so those things are interesting, and I think it's led on to why I can easily travel back and forth to Mexico. As one person said, Javier, you make it look so seamless. Yeah, because I don't have that barrier, cultural barrier. I can assimilate, but I can fall in. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I even though I was very shy as a kid, and later I've been able to move back and forth, and anyway, but a lot had to do that when I left Los Angeles to break away from the life there that I wasn't very satisfied with. So I was 19. And I didn't look back, and that was probably the best move I've ever made. Now I like LA. I want to go back, but it's like, it's hard to break into the art scene right now in LA.
Well, actually, before getting into why you were dissatisfied with LA, how old were you when you and your family immigrated?
7.
7. Okay. Yeah. That's an interesting time to make a big change like that, because that's, for me, that was like right when I started to really be a little bit more conscious of the environment and stuff. Like 5, 6, 7, like 4, I have memories, but I was like not conscious of where I was at all. So, yeah. So you have memories of Mexico, Tijuana, and then it's like you're just starting, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and then a quick transition of environment.
Yeah, it was second grade. But I hang on to some of those memories in Mexico, like walking to church and doing the Catholic rituals and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, but it wasn't very, as a kid, you can assimilate very well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I find it fascinating how artists seem to be, in general, more introverted, or lean more introverted, more like shy. And I feel like those two connect, creativity and introversion connect a lot.
Well, I think you just can't help it. You have to find a way to express. And that's one avenue. The other one wasn't looking too good. I mean, I left some of my friends in LA, and some of them didn't make it. I knew I had to get out at the time. I mean, they were just depressed. It wasn't like they were in gangs. I mean, but it was just, a couple of them committed suicide. So it's
okay.
And I was just wanting to go leave.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting place, definitely big. Now I like it, but back then I had to leave. I have a little drawing that says, I have to leave LA. Of a pine tree or something.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that kept me sane was playing tennis in Southern California. Mm. And it was like one of the few things I had, like in high school. I just wanted to be Mr. C grade. Mm. I didn't want to excel. I didn't want to flunk. Yeah. And then after a while, I just wanted to play tennis. Be on the tennis team. I didn't want to get cut because of bad grades, so I just maintained my level. And I never took an art class either.
Yeah.
I took one at the last semester,
mm-hmm.
a ceramic class, which was kind of interesting. But it was the tennis, and around that time, I used to hang out in the alley with the guys that smoked and. Mm-hmm. Were truant, but I couldn't do too much of that because I wanted to play tennis. So.
Yeah. How many years did you play tennis for?
Not too, 3
years. Okay.
Yeah. No, but it changed me because it was like, I was already like an individual. I could do team sports, but I just wasn't into the culture, the jock culture, the cheerleader culture, those roles that were kind of for athletes or whatever. So I think I took some music lessons, a piano class, and I met someone there who became my best friend. And he was on the tennis team. It was pretty good. And then I started hanging out with his parents too, because they were like, their business was flea markets. Mm-hmm. And I just found that really fascinating. So, I'm glad I thought of that because, you just get to see a lot of stuff and start to learn about stuff. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't like in the curriculum. My favorite teacher in high school was a German teacher, and I got a D in that class. But she was like the only teacher I could find that would like tell it like it is. Talk to me and talk about the world.
Yeah.
And I've been to Germany a few times, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to later in the conversation talk about travel and countries and stuff. But going back to tennis, though, that's interesting. You played for a few years. Were there any surprising similarities between tennis and art, or tennis and painting, that you found?
Well, at the time I didn't know art. I was playing tennis, and when I moved to Humboldt County from LA, I was on their first tennis team ever, but it wasn't until I was in Mexico, and I'm moving further along, but just to tie those two together, art and tennis, I met someone in the art school that I went to in Mexico City, and he said, I saw him with a tennis racket, and I said, "Oh, you play tennis? Okay." And he goes, "You should come out," he tells me. And so he did invite me, and through him, I met a student who was this well-established painter, and so after that, I became good friends with this one painter, and that was something that we shared, painting and tennis, and playing tennis on clay courts, which was a little different.
Clay courts?
Yeah.
Like?
Like they do in France and Roland Garros and in Spain and in Mexico and Argentina. It's a different surface. You slide. You don't hop so much on the concrete, on the hard courts.
Your feet actually glide against the...
That you slide. It's people that watch tennis can see that it's different. People slide into the surface, and instead of like hopping and making quick moves.
Oh, that's cool.
It really is.
I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah, and then the ball has a different effect, and so it was cool playing on clay courts, and every time I'd be in Mexico, or when I was there, I played with Juan Manuel, and then I moved here, and I'd go visit or do something, and then we'd hook up and go to a club or something, because tennis is more exclusive in Mexico than here. It's all clubs.
Yeah.
Here it's like you play anywhere.
Right. So you had one art class, a ceramic class in high school. You're more interested in tennis, but you weren't really a jock or identified with anything like that. You said that's interesting that team sports was something you were fine with, but you focused more on the individual sport. I was more of an individual sport person. But so when did art become a more serious thing for you? Then was it soon after high school, or was it later on?
It was later on. Between high school and leaving LA, I was there in LA for one more year. Mm-hmm. So I went to the community college. They call it Rio Hondo College in Whittier, California. Harvard on the Hill, they call it. And at Rio.
Why is that?
Oh, because it was on the hill, and they were making fun of it was Harvard.
It wasn't Harvard. Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's actually close to Rose Hills, which is the cemetery up there. And that's where I started just taking photo classes. I remember in my senior year in high school, I was helping the photographer who would film the football games, and I became his assistant. And it was something different. And then when I left high school, I took some photo classes. My first photo classes at Rio Hondo College, and started taking different courses like philosophy, poetry, creative writing, things that I had never taken before, and started working out with their tennis team. So I did that for a year. But then I saw some ad on television, commercial, about getting work in outside of the city, and so I went for it. So.
What were those jobs that you did?
It was this program that I think it still exists, California Conservation Corps. And what they do is they just take a bunch of people from the range of 18 to 21, and they go train them for a month somewhere outside of Sacramento and in the country, and then they send you to a work camp, and it was interesting because you end up with people that you wouldn't normally meet.
Right.
Because they're from different cities or the country, people from South Central LA or the boonies somewhere from the valley or somewhere, or people from the Bay, wherever. And that's who so I ended up working at this camp in Humboldt County, which is pretty cool. It was really cool. I just it seemed to follow along with I don't know, everything was new. It was wonderful. And I learned how to swim in the river. The winters were pretty interesting. It was like 6 months of steady rain.
Up in Humboldt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they call it the Redwood Curtain back up there. But I was up there for 5 years. And that's where I started taking art classes like crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. But not totally crazy. I had to work. I was one of the few people I knew who seemed to have a regular job, and because there was high unemployment, and they had another industry up there that was taking people that wasn't necessarily legit, but it was a big industry, and the pot growing and stuff. And
okay. Yeah.
but I had a job. Through a program called CETA. I don't think it exists anymore. CETA, I think it was called. Anyway, they sent me to a town called Ferndale to build sets, which was really cool, at a theater. And by then, I had already started attending the community college and just taking music classes, theater classes, painting classes, drawing classes, photography classes.
Oh, wow.
Just whatever they had. It was all like fascinating. And plus I was working at a theater building sets and sitting in the rehearsals at night because I lived in this little town, Ferndale.
Yeah.
And I lived across the street. So, yeah. And then later I got another job showing movies at a big movie house theater. It was, one of those big Art Deco theaters. And so I was a projectionist there, working with like 1930 simplex projectors.
Nice.
With the arc where they... And I got to be God. And that's you realize you could be God because you're like in charge here, sort of like the wizard or the wizard of Oz, just running everything. And I even got to do, and I'm so glad I did it. I did it once. And that's like burn film in front of you. When I realized I had to like get the projector going because it's so hot that it just burns the film, right? 35 millimeter film. Yeah. And so in the big screen, you see it like, show it. Get it going again. Yeah. And then you what was the term? Splice it up. Yeah. At the later when you re-roll it, you got to go back. And because there were like 5 rolls or 5 to 7 big 35 millimeter reels that you had to go from one projector to the other.
Right. Yeah.
And that was pretty cool.
Did you ever do a Tyler Durden Fight Club splice of just like a photo in the movie?
Oh, no. No, but it was an interesting place, especially when you close up, because it was like, you never want to turn the lights on because it's just so bad inside, like, sticky, dirty, and all that stuff, and falling apart. But which you want the fantasy to keep going, right? In the nice Art Deco lights and walls and stuff. But they did have a lot of old reels that they had shown there once, and it was an adult film. I don't know. Theaters, they just go through different phases, so that they had all this history.
Yeah. So you took art classes for a period of years while you were living up in Ferndale and working. So you were managing work, and then you were also doing painting classes, music classes, theater classes. At what point did the classes transition to you making your own art outside of it? And was there a firm time when you were like, okay, I'm going to be an artist, or was it a slower transition to committing to that?
Well, it just seemed, I mean, before I was 19, I wasn't doing anything like that. And so it just seemed something that fit really natural, well. Like, and again, I still see those analogies of different mediums. And so, and how they they mix, you know, like in theater, you have sound, you have light, you have visual. And yeah, so I saw it like an integral, and I was just really not thinking too much about it, just absorbing it. And I was doing a lot of photography too. I was working at the college there as well. They had a production department, and I got to use all their equipment and film to shoot weird things, audiovisuals. Weird, I say, by whatever they needed. And one of their big clients was this police academy. So I was out there shooting away cameras of skid marks and situations that they would come up with. And, you know, you had a car, you had equipment, you had a budget. You didn't get paid much, but you learned a lot. So and that got me into working also as a photographer. More so relying on that later. Yeah.
Those are the best kind of jobs, I feel. Like below the age of 30, I feel like those are the most important jobs to have. It's just like jobs where it doesn't really matter how much you're getting paid as long as you're like learning things and building valuable skills.
Yeah. Yeah, that and the folks were really nice too. You know, just they were artists, some of them too, and they were out there. And yeah, we had to do a movie for, what were they doing? Oh yeah, this production. I was an actor there for that movie. He didn't have any words. He was just like the secret agent guy. And but the whole movie was about showing you how to use a camera, a film, video camera. And these guys, you know, but it was wonderful to work with those folks that were in that production company that I was working with, because I think just the camaraderie that developed was really nice. Yeah.
Because you're in this community now, this artist community. Back then you were taking classes, so when you're in school, there's kind of like that community camaraderie thing, just from going to classes. Can you speak to the importance of that, if that is an important aspect of your creative process or just your lifestyle as an artist, being around other creative people and how that feeds your kind of creative endeavors?
Well, you know, it's interesting because things never turn out the way you think. And like that wasn't in my mind then. And I see more of what I was reading as opposed to at the end of my high school to transitioning outside, that I was reading like Thoreau and on communes and their situations. And then I went to a work camp in Humboldt County where I had to live with people. And I think the college was actually more individualistic in that sense, because you know, everybody lived in their separate homes, and we came for certain experiences. But it's interesting to see that you know, having read about communes and back in like senior year, this is all like, it wasn't even like homework. It was just stuff I would pick up at the library because I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life, and that seemed to be an interesting topic. Communes, drugs, whatever, philosophy, poetry. And I was kind of you were talking about teaching yourself film, and well, that was kind of the same. I was teaching myself what I wanted,
Yeah.
and landing here in this commune or in Project Artaud, it brought back some of that, just thinking that, oh, wait a minute, I remember that I used to read on 60s communes and those situations on the Shakers that had communes too, and, just historical aspects of communes. And now I live in one, and it's great because it gives us space and affordability to be here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could just... Okay. I'm gonna turn off the alarm in here. 2017, 2020, I believe, those two. And that one is in around 2019. They're all color field paintings. This is mostly a drip painting, and it's got some fall colors or something like that. But it's also got some really cool pigments, well, more like fluorescent, cool, because it's pigment, but it's fluorescent. And it's acrylic, so, and those are dripping down along with other tones. And it's all layers. It's always layers and layers. And slowly the painting starts indicating where you want to go. What I want in these paintings, whether it's acrylic or oil, is that they look like they have the same factura. How do you say that in English? The same manufacturer, the same print. They look like very similar in the way they're finished. And this, it's also an acrylic, and it's 72 by 60. And it's 2 panels, so that makes it a diptych. It's again drip and drop, which is what I've been using a lot. And we can go to this next one. This one's called Seduction, and it's got a lot of gold, so you know how that can be seductive. In all the paintings, it's also a limited palette, because I find that, for me, using too many colors is kind of confusing. It's like, what are you trying to say, And so limiting one color and its variations sometimes is enough for me, because they say a lot, because you mark a tone, and then, that in itself reverberates and says something. If you're throwing out a lot of colors, it can be confusing, because my work is not narrative in the sense that I'm not telling a story. It's more about the feeling that one has with color and our relationship. And it's not going to be the same from one person to the other, let's say with gold or black or blue or any other color. So it's more of the experience.
Yeah. I want to transition now to your art, and specifically your process around art, and speaking about that. So can you walk me through your brainstorming process, how you get ideas for your art?
Well, it seems like everything's just waiting for me, but first I have to rest, take a nap or something. I mean, this is kind of a process, and then be fresh, and which means you've allotted some time. That's so important, It's like, at least for me, because I haven't always been just strictly an art as dedicated to. So it's like the time is very important that you allot. That's like the number one ingredient for an art piece. And then you, if you've already started something, you re-engage. If you're not, you have to kind of conjure up, where was I? Do you have drawings somewhere? Do you have ideas? Sometimes I draw on the wall ideas and then come back to them, or titles even, you know. But if you're in a mood, it helps. Like if there's like something that's like in your mind, but that can be like brought upon by different things. It could be brought upon by the weather. It could be brought upon by something you read, a story, you just finished a book. It could be brought upon a movie. Film is a big one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it could be brought upon by my favorite instrument, the cello, or some other instrument. And because, let's take the cello, for example. It's got these different tones, and I just love it because it's like, I just see the analogies and correlations with tones of a certain color, you know, and I could work with that to start. And then you got to also, once the painting says, okay, you're good to go. I know that sounds different. I mean, it means that you've engaged enough with the work that now the work is telling you, okay, now maybe you need some more, a layer of white here, or semi-white, like warm tone or something. But it will tell you. But I don't know. There's a boxer that I like. Well, I don't like that guy in particular, but he's a damn good fighter, Mayweather. And he was talking about the zone, you know, just being in the zone. And that really is kind of where you want to be, in something that you want to engage with, you know. And then it just takes over. Yeah.
Are there any things that you intentionally do or don't do to ensure that you stay in the zone, or that you're preparing to be in the zone for a period of time?
Well, I used to rely on, external stimuli, whatever it was, loud music, drink, alcohol or something. And but now it's just strictly inspiration will come, but first it's discipline, and so that's kind of what you have to do. Get in there, get in the midst. It's like training. That's why it's like I find the talking about boxing, for instance, is just those guys that get in the ring. Man. It's like if you're not fit, you're in trouble. And so that's kind of it. You got to be working ideas, and it's easier now because I'm on this rail now, you know. Now I just got to take care of my health and, have a partner. She lives far away in Mexico, and she's in the arts as well. You know, she's a writer and poet and many other things. But so that's someone I could, we just keep the ball rolling. Mm-hmm. And with other folks too. I have another friend who inspires me. His studio is down the street. He's like 80-something. He's a great painter. Yeah. And I love his work, but his person is just like, this guy's so jovial. He's younger than a lot of young people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to go off too far on a tangent, so I'll leave it with that.
Oh, yeah. So things that you intentionally do to kind of prepare for being in the zone, in the zone. It would be like a lot of things that some artists do, like engage with drugs or alcohol or music, some kind of stimulation. Mm-hmm. You've done that, and you find that not doing those things is actually better for you.
Not necessarily. I mean, I could, I can work under many circumstances. Sometimes I have video on, music. Okay. I'm drinking a glass of wine or something, and then I work for hours. Maybe I have 2 glasses of wine. Maybe I smoke a cigarette. I don't really smoke that much, but now and then I'll have a cigarette. Mm-hmm. And but I find that those things are just there. they don't really stir me one way or the other.
Okay.
I mean, they could, because if a music that suddenly is very emotional or something, you could it could come in, but it doesn't keep you away from like where you're going. And but I think, again, nobody wants to wake up with a headache in the morning, and at least I don't. And and so, but anything goes. I think it's whatever your process is, and different people have a different way of just looking at things, and also age is a factor. But like I just mentioned, my 80-something friend. I mean, with him, people are always showing up after 6. And he maintains it. He's like, bottles pop open, people come over, and it's just nice to see that he can do that. It's like I actually I'd rather go there than have that happen here, because it's like, his space is bigger, but I just like the isolation of working. And here. But I could work with someone else. My partner's here. She has another project. She makes books too and other things. And so we, I can, organization is a big one, I think. You that's part of like setting up for work also. Getting lining up everything, boom. Even if you make a big mess, but it's like having everything ready.
Yeah.
And you're rested, and then you can just work for hours, and it's great.
Do any of them consistently have a positive or negative effect that you found, that you've experimented over your entire artistic career? Like consistently, like, oh, I can't do that one, or I intentionally always do this one.
Let's see. It sounded easy. The question sounded pretty easy, but the things I mean.
You also mentioned, books and music and movies. I mean, those are huge sources that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay. Like to get it going. No,
Yeah.
I think it's good to go out and see things that can. Talking for myself, but I think it's probably helpful for other folks who are in the creative. It's just looking for something to that can move you, stimulate you. I'm thinking of, for instance, movies. Movies, even though I don't watch many movies anymore, there's many movies that I can still draw back to, and that inspire me or put me on the track. Most recently, I saw a movie, 2, and one was by Bardo. It's this by the Mexican director, Iñárritu, and he did the 29 grams or something, 21. He did many movies. There's 3 big Mexican directors that are out there, right? The big 3. But anyway, it's a recent movie, and that particular movie, I thought it was very well done. I don't follow him, so I don't have a baggage with him. Other people do, so they don't like the movie. I liked it. It reminded me of 8½, Fellini's, or Woody Allen's Stardust Memories, which is kind of the same movie. So this I found, which was neat to be able to see that kind of. It was stimulating. And prior to that, I saw a movie by Lars von Trier, and that Melancholia, which I found, oh wow, I didn't see it back then, even though I've been seeing his movies in the past. When it came out, I didn't see it. And there goes the tractor.
Nice, just on time.
Right on time. That was my clock, and it was such a beautiful movie that visually I thought, oh wow, there's things here that just can, his intention, or I mean, that first 10 minutes is like a painting, and then it breaks off to two stories, right? And but that painting was like taking you to the pre-Raphaelite works, right? The paintings, and I don't know, those things stimulate me. Reading something like poetry can do the same. Or thinking about one of my writers that I like that puts me in a good mood. It's hard to say good mood puts me. You wouldn't put anyone else because who knows? His name is Saramago. He's the Portuguese writer, and his books tend to be thick and themes that have to do with society going kind of amok and how we handle that. And interesting enough, those kind of things put me in a certain tone, and where I could like extract tones or color, not color, but tones, and then I go into a color, which one is waiting for me. But that's only part of it. I mean, I have one piece of music that I always listen to. I forget the title. Hendrik, what's his name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's just, there's things that would help me. But I don't need them that much anymore. It's like, they're there. I mean, a lot of movies or books, they're already instilled. I don't watch new movies just because I don't see very many. I mean, I don't follow Hollywood, so that's something that I don't do. Yeah. And, but I've seen a lot of movies in the past, and they're still working for me. So, I don't know. Literature, that's more. I do read more, and I've gotten on a frenzy with this writer. What's her name? Rosa Montero from Spain. It's like if Almodovar would read her books, his movies would still be interesting. It's like, because right now his movies is just turned into cardboard. And but anyway, see my references to movie is in life, and it's like, and but Rosa Montero is a wonderful writer, and she's got a lot of humor, which yeah.
A lot of novellas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Novels, yeah. But she's a serious writer. She's also a journalist, and I mean, that's someone I've been reading lately, and in Spanish, which is always good for me.
We were also talking about another source of creativity earlier, which is location and where you were born and how that shaped you and stuff. In terms of travel, places that you've been to briefly or that you've lived for a period of time, is there any other places that stand out besides your time in LA and Humboldt and Mexico that have really shaped your artistic style or been sources of creativity for you?
Well, I'm glad I acquired a taste for German culture early on, even though I was like one of the worst students in my German class. And because later I just saw how intense that culture was in the arts and in everything, really. But they have an interesting history. But I guess I started, in Mexico, I started becoming more interested in like the art movements in Germany, the expressionist, and later I met this woman in Mexico, and then I went to see her, and she worked as an artistic director at a theater, and I got to meet her circle of friends, but I had already gone. But by then I already had this notion of German art and contemporary more than anything, the expressionists, the new ones too, Baselitz and different ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing. Mexico kind of led me back towards Germany, or led me towards Germany. And then from Germany, I had a friend in Rome, so I went there. And that was that was a lot of fun, and it got to experience the two cultures, and because they're different, but yet there's the opposites attract each other. It's like that's why, just like attracted me. I was attracted to that German woman. We're still friends. I know her family. It's great, and then I've been back to Germany, and gone to museums and just I don't know. I'm intrigued, and the more I know more and more. I mean, just like different poets from the past, like Holderling, or different. I can't think of them right. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many things that I think from there. But more recent, we went to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, really, and around Buenos Aires. But I always wanted to go to Uruguay, and because one of my favorite painters is from there, and there's so many, and a writer that some people consider him like a B writer, Benedetti. But I always liked him. I didn't care if people find him like to be a lower. And there's other writers too. But in Uruguay, it was nice. It was really good to go to Montevideo, go to the province, and see some of see things kind of from a different angle. I swear, it's like you're down there, and there's a drawing or a painting by Torres Garcia. Joaquin Torres Garcia is the artist that I like down there. It's kind of interesting history. And he's got this map of the world, or Latin America, but up where Tierra del Fuego, is that it, in the south, is way on the top. And so everything you look at it from a different angle. And it's true. Once you're there, you feel like you're seeing the sunset, and you feel like you're looking down, but you're technically close to the Antarctic, right?
Right.
Or down there.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle is nice. It's very European, curious
Slower.
enough. But we're also in Colombia. It's a little different.
Oh yeah.
And very different influences. And but I don't know. I think there's many places. We were in Paris recently too, and my partner and I, who lives in Mexico, she's a writer, but she lived in Paris many years, so that was wonderful. I always had this phobia about speaking French because I'd rather speak German, right, or Italian, but not French. Like, oh my God, it's like maybe in I don't know. I liked French cinema. I like art, but just pronouncing it, and I just felt like, the French are going to laugh at me.
Oh, interesting. I would be more afraid of learning German. It's more difficult, I would think.
Yeah, well, it is and it's not, because if you know some old English, then that comes from the German. It's like you see the words, and they pretty much look like it's German. And so in English, I just kind of made if you know English, in Old English, then you know German. And French, I did a lot of studying before I went there. This time was just I was working this job, and I had to drive like a couple days a week. So I would slip this cassette on and just be drilling those, pronouncing the French. And and once I was there, it was fine. It was really good. I mean, I'd go down, do simple things like get bread and ask for the bill. Just simple questions. And my girlfriend, she's a translator, Spanish, French translator, French, Spanish. And so, she speaks perfect, and her son was born there, so she's that was her element. But I felt good. But I have to say that probably one place that really hit me was being in Spain, because probably because of the baggage one carries historically. You know, it must be in your DNA or something. Because, I mean, I don't know if Manrique, which is my last name, is really, of course, it comes from there. But because, you know, names were bought during the Virreinato, when it was just New Spain. You know, some people would buy there. So who knows if my name came from there or it's actually derived. But anyway, it was just it had to do too that my younger brother had died like a couple of years ago. And he back then, you know, and he was very proud of his name, even though he hardly ever spoke English because he grew up pretty much in the U.S.
Okay.
But my father he was pretty proud about his name. But being there, I remember I was in Barcelona, and then I was in Madrid, and then I was taking the train back to Barcelona, and somewhere along there, I had this weird like sensation about the past. It's like, whoa. It took me to, I mean, Madrid and Mexico City look very similar in parts of the city because they're the construction, the buildings, and but it wasn't that. It was the history or something that, that just helped to start setting me up for this feeling, I think, about being connected.
Okay.
And I felt good about it. I felt good about being connected with, for my brother who died. And just like, oh, wow, that was a piece of the puzzle, I thought.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I went back to Barcelona. Some friends were waiting. And then I tried to skip France to get to Germany because that's where I was going next. But I had to go to the south and then go to Paris and then take a train. And it wasn't a problem. But yeah, I think in Spain, I like to go back. I have some friends over there, and you know, there's just so many things that lead you back. I don't know if the Spanish feel about Mexicans, because even though I was there for an art fair in early 2000s too, and a print fair, Stampa, and we were staying in this part of Madrid, and with my friends from Mexico City, I was living here, but we met there, and later we'd go to this little bar, and then they close it, but we could still be in there, and some of the older guys were like, "Oh, Mexico, yeah, I was there when, you know, in the 60s or something." And
Any strong opinions, or was it?
no, very fond of. I think it's just the Spanish that live in Mexico that maybe have an issue with thinking they may be superior, but not. It's not like that. I have good friends in Spain. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's I had a Spanish professor in high school who was Colombiana, and then another professor in university who was from Argentina. And there were strong differences in subtle communication, also obviously the accent. Like the very first thing I picked up on was the Argentinian man pronounced pollo.
Oh, right.
And there was the tendency to, I don't know if it's a stylistic flair that comes from the European side being more pronounced with the Argentinian culture, or if it's, I don't know, how they just talk. But I noticed that almost immediately.
Definitely melodic, yeah. It's like they're speaking Spanish and Italian.
Yeah,
you know?
that's the perfect way to explain it.
Yeah, and the English, the Spanish in Colombia, I found very more formal, at least straightforward. In a way, I guess it varies from the coast, because my girlfriend was there presenting a book. We were at the art book fair, and she had to present the book with this group that came from Cartagena. Very different than the people in Bogota. And they were just like tropical. They were just like, you know, more expressive, more, you know, like it was interesting because, you know, my girlfriend, Malaysia, my girlfriend, she's not like that. She's more like, you know,
city kind of person, but her Spanish is not a lot of flair. It's very kind of straightforward. So, but she had to share this like talk with these other folks.
So she went up and was very like traditional and conservative in her communication, and then the Cartagenans came up and were like all over the place, like,
oh my God, they were like
flaring.
seemed like they were fighting over the mic.
Yeah. I have one experience with a man who's from Cartagena. I lived with someone in 2021. I spent some time in Ecuador, and I roomed with someone in an Airbnb, him and his sons, and he was from Cali or Cartagena, but that kind of area of Colombia. And he was very expressive in his communication.
There's this other author that Colombian, Santiago Gamboa, I think is his name. He's excellent, and he sometimes in one of his books he just kind of refers to different regions and what they're like, and like one character, who's a journalist, says that anyone who's below a certain elevation is like they've got this swank about them. They're wearing sandals or like always like hot or something, you know.
I want to transition now to your journey as like an artist with your work, and really dive deeper into the meaning of your work. And so from your perspective, looking at all the works that you've created, all the art that you've created, is there a specific artwork that stands out as the most significant to you?
Well, we could use that word significance to go to different works. Size-wise, I did a painting, a commission in Mexico City in 2013 for this foundation, and I mean they're still showing it. It belongs to them, and but it's a good painting. It's I don't know how big it is, but it's like you don't know if it's good. Like I was saying earlier, you just do the best you can, and it was like 2 or 3 trips because I was here and then I had to go, but I was getting paid for it, so I could go back and forth, and it is one of those paintings where there are transition between form or references into more abstract, and it was huge, and it holds up really well. It's something like Silver Rain Over the City or something, it's titled. But anyway, I find just for its size and interesting, it's been shown in different with this collection of big paintings that this foundation has. And it was one of the paintings they showed like in the entrance as representing this, their collection. But it's just for that. I mean, it's a wonderful painting. It's just very subtle, and I like, as we were talking earlier before we started recording, I like hitting people over the head, but very subtly. It's not like a boom. No, because it doesn't last. You want something to like. I was gonna like. What did Susan Sontag say? Something like referring to this film director, Paul Bresson. He did these movies where he gives you the title like "Man Escapes from Jail and Succeeds" or something. It's not a title, but it goes.
Okay.
And it's all about this one person. In the last 5 minutes, he escapes. All he does is try to get there, but how he figures it out, how he and so it's like withholding your emotions till the end kind of thing. It's, you just get more for the money, you just get more. And so I like that idea. And so that painting has it. But as far as significant work, it's like usually the one that I'm working on now, that's the most significant one, because I tend to be
I hate when people talk about art as their kids, but anyway, if we use that as an example, then I'm a bad father, because once I'm engaged with them and do them, I'm done with it. Once it's finished, it's like I sign it, it's there, boom. Then I move on. So it's just hard to look back. I've had series of work that I've done that, for example, between 83 and 87 in Mexico City, I did a series of photographs of interiors and exteriors of facades in apartment buildings, neoclassic ones, downtown area that were pretty much falling apart. And, I did get a grant for that, and a work grant from Bellas Artes in Mexico. And that series seems like it's there, and it's been shown. And it's probably where I've sold more photographs from that series. But it's like once I finished it, it stopped, but it's there. Now I have like arsenal, right? I can choose. Like this one show that I'm gonna have in Mexico City. It's kind of exciting because I have to figure out what I'm gonna do, and we changed it just because of logistics. I was gonna have a big gallery, now it's just a smaller one, and we moved the date. But I want to make it more graphic work because it's smaller, and so I'm thinking, okay, well, here I could bring in these drawings, I can bring in these print work, I can print, and so it's like work that's waiting for its moment. That's why I think, and that's why it's important to show. I think the work deserves it if it's work that is well done and hasn't been seen. You could have done it in 19 whatever, and it still can apply. The thing is to communicate, but it's a hard question. I mean, I did some bronzes early in 1990 that I found were significant then for me to. Maybe that's it. It's what's significant in my trajectory more than what it. And so that those bronzes were instrumental for me to stop taking photographs, just because I felt it was just getting too repetitive. So I needed to start taking photographs, create objects, make photo murals, start painting on them. And a couple of them went to the painting biennale in, 94 or something in Mexico City. So I'm all over the place on this one.
No, it's fine. Yeah. Some of them were significant for your transition of mediums, the bronze statues for transitioning out of photography.
Yeah, and more than medium, the medium is just that. It's for, your personal growth. And to not be stagnated. It's like, it's like, something I don't really think about too much, but you could get stagnated, with wanting to hit something that you may never hit again.
Right, yeah.
So.
No, I think you answered that question beautifully. You covered a lot. The bronze statues, the photography, and the silver rain over the city. I'll ask about that later so I can actually put it up on hopefully a photo of it so people can see. More general of a question, when I say the words successful artist, what comes to mind for you?
Well, what comes to mind, I mean, I'll try to be sincere. Well, I am sincere, right? Since, what else is there? But success is just being able to work, I think, and having good health. It's, I think money is in the art market and all that stuff. That's a different aspect of the art world. But success for me as an artist, I think that just having a place to work and, having those simple things, having a partner, eating well, laughing with friends, and having time. Time's a big one.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really fascinated by, more so now than before. It's weird, it's like, wait a minute, I should have been interested this much about the art world as a whole. Like, just the whole thing about art market and the unregulated world of the art market. It's fascinating. It's not like something that makes me think, oh shoot, how am I going to look at, it's like, it's almost like make it up as you go along.
Yeah.
Which you got to do anyway. I mean, once you realize that that's life, it gives you some liberty, like to choose what you want to do or leave behind what you need to leave behind. And yeah, life is short, so.
Yeah. That was beautiful.
Yeah, and it is beautiful.
You pretty much answered actually the next question, but I'll just say it in case there's anything you wanted to add. Are there any values or a philosophy that kind of you use to guide your life? Any values that you try to uphold or a philosophy? I mean, you kind of just answered that, but
No, but it is something that I saw that when you send me the things to keep in mind, and just made me think about the isms that I've been through, and hedonism, existentialism, it's. But now I think I couldn't, and it's worth hanging in there, hitting rock bottom and just finding your way up or something, because you discover more, and I'm intrigued, and I like the idea of ethics, for example, and at times, and also ethics, dignity, just things like that I can apply. It doesn't really. I mean, I have philosophers that I look to still because I'm. A lot of times I don't understand it, but so I put it on it and over YouTube's. And Gilles Deleuze, for example, 1960s French philosopher, I like some of his ideas, little that I can understand. And more recent, I watched Slavoj Žižek, who's wonderful. It's interesting because he cuts off half his audience just by, some people we're so I don't know, I hope it changes or it's changing. If you hear an accent, you just cut it off. You don't want to but this guy, man, it's once he starts, he's very insightful. Not only is he a social critic, but he's as a philosopher, I think he's worthy of listening to. And then there's another guy, Boris Groys, who I listen to mostly for aesthetics and things like that. He's a interesting guy. But as an ism, well, I don't know. Lately, I've also been I think Alan Watts is something that I like to listen to because he was so human, and and he has a sense of humor. He didn't live that long, but he lived intensely, and he's a Buddhist. I don't know. You learn different things from different folks. But hang in there. Keep living. There's just so much more. That's the wonderful thing to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Alan Watts is a very popular. He's very, I think, mainstream, even with teenagers nowadays. Still, I think because of YouTube, there's a lot of his lectures and material presented on YouTube, and a lot of subcultures with rave culture, music festival culture, drug and psychedelic type culture. A lot of those subcultures, groups of people really like Alan Watts, it seems, in my experience.
I didn't know that, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's got a lot of wisdom. And yeah, it's like I don't like to pry sometimes on people's personal life before I know their work, but after I knew a little bit more about him and his issues, just normal life,
Yeah.
I appreciated him even more.
Some of the more fun questions or maybe not fun. Actually, I take that back. It's maybe not fun, but less focused on your art and just art in general. I don't know why I said fun. It's not. It's actually kind of a serious question, and very broad. But what do you see as the purpose of art?
Well, I think the purpose has shifted over the ages, time, and but I like to think of it as where it comes from, and as we talked earlier about the caves and just this sacredness, how objects were more ritualistic, spiritual, and I still think that essence is very important. I think what I do is, I think, and this is the thought that just came to mind, because I think that a piece of art or a work of art, whatever it is, you can live with it and experience it. And I think that's important. And so, and it comes in different forms. We were talking about movies, books, sound, music. Yeah, so there is no absolute one answer. I think it's definitely how you can experience it, and whatever it is. And you don't need to go to a museum to experience art. Once you have it in your mind, I mean, it's great because you can see pieces that are well selected and they have, something to offer you. I read the discourse afterwards. I mean, first I just gravitate to the piece, but one of my favorite places I like doing when I'm in Mexico City is walking into one of these stores that sells nothing but perfume bottles, because it's like they're neatly arranged in different colors. And then the light creeps in, it's coming in, and you get this really wonderful glow of vibration and color and light. And gosh, didn't even have to go to the Palace of Fine Arts for that. And so it's everywhere, that's what I'm saying. If you start to cue in on these things, sensitizing yourself and letting go. That I found out from watching kids, probably, because they're not, they don't have these judgments about things. They just go with it. That's happened before. It's like I was in this organization that would do shows in plazas, and I had a big painting, big yellow one, and so I was sitting there. I did this for a year. It was a lot of schlepping, a lot of setting up and back and forth, and I learned some things. It was worth it. But this time, it's the only painting I ever sold, but this story. And there was this father and a little girl looking at this big yellow painting, and that I did. And so I was just sitting there waiting for someone, and they were over there, so it's like, okay, I'll just go up and talk to them and say hi. And so I did. I said hi, and I go, hi. I talk to the little girl and go, what are you looking at? Oh, no, it's like, yeah, it says, oh, yeah, that's what I did ask her. What are you looking at? Because she was really intensely looking at this yellow painting. And I startled her, and she looks at me. I don't know. She says, but it makes me happy. And I thought, that's all I need to know. And so I just walked away and said, thank you. And I just sat on that one for a while, because that's
all I need to do. Put it out there and see what happens. And later, this engineer from Shell who was visiting town, lives in Houston, bought the painting. And
That painting that she was looking
yeah.
at? Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she kind of blessed it. It was the only painting I sold all that year in that organization, but it was worth it. It was a good sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. What were the most important exercises for developing your painting, going back to either your classes that you took in Ferndale or before then, or maybe after you left like the curriculum system and just through your own experimentation? Were there any exercises that were really helpful for your skills as an artist?
Well, I think it's always good to get down to technique because a lot of times, and you see that in art fairs, I mean, everything's thrown out at you, and some of it's really kind of sloppy, and so it's like it's great to at least get your technique down, or a medium, or some technical aspects well honed. And that's just the beginning, okay? It's not like, in that, you could do that over the years. This continuity with it. But and once you do that, and then, you just need to do a living. And living, I mean, it's educating yourself. It's like trusting yourself to go where you think the work leads you. I don't know, education, you go to an art school, maybe, you don't have to. I think there's a lot of good self-taught artists, and I know a few. And I admire outside artists because they're just so... See, you didn't have to tell those folks, it's like, oh, you should do technique. No, they just do it. Why? Because there's this urgency. And that's the thing, see, that's living. Gotta go to the living part. You gotta live. And that will also guide you. Sometimes you go through some hard times, sometimes some good times, but you can't let it go. There's these outsider artists just keep sounding in my head suddenly, like Darger, that guy, that strange guy who was like a janitor most of his life. And
How do you spell it?
Darger?
Yeah.
Darger.
Oh, okay, just like the sound.
And
I think I've heard of that guy, actually. Yeah, he was a janitor, and he made art on the side.
Yeah, and then there's this guy. I just bought his book. I ordered it. It's what's his name? This guy. I forget his name, but because I'm bad at names. But he was he actually was a slave, and it wasn't until his 50s that he started drawing. Beautiful drawings, very expressive. So, I don't know. I'm sure that had something to do with why he was doing what he was doing. It's hard to, if you're just going to be mechanical about things, it's just going to get you so far, I think. And we were talking way early, about that AI movie.
AI movie.
Yeah, about this guy who was off on his own. Creating,
Oh, Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does this guy want? And he's making these machines become sensitive,
Right.
and it's in a way it's that it's like there's things that you can prepare for, but you can't just stick to the technique. It has to later evolve something more personal, and a language. You can develop a language, and then you can start going to town and expressing yourself, and but impetus, having the impetus to do it, and no matter what, that's going to get you far.
Yeah. That's actually great advice to have, like you're saying. I mean, all of that, but especially the urgency, the sense of urgency in creating one's own techniques. I find
You'll get there.
Yeah.
It's like styles in boxing. It's like, in film, you see language, obviously with writers, painters. Yeah.
musicians.
If you could have lunch with one artist, dead or alive, who would that be?
Ingmar Bergman.
Oh, okay. That's the is he Swedish? The
He's
Swedish director?
Yeah.
Yeah. Strawberry Dreams.
Yeah, he did
Strawberry
that one.
Dream.
Apparently, that was one of his late. It was a heartwarming movie. I remember it was. I discovered that one later. It was his more devastating movies that I discovered, like when I had last year in high school or something, where I felt like no one was telling me the truth until I saw one of his movies. I was blown away.
Is that Seventh Seal?
No, it was the Virgin Spring, and then because I became a PBS, that was the only channel I kind of watched because I learned how to do yoga in PBS. They had Joseph Campbell on, and they had this great series. It was like a soap opera, but it was like by Bergman. It was Scenes of Marriage or something.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
that was but I see Bergman because I felt like someone was telling me the truth that hurt, the one no one talks about. It was like, wow. It's like I was like, I was thanking him then, but it was, it's like maybe that's why I it's like I didn't need to go to a therapist. It's like he just started hitting all the nerves, and with his movies, the Persona, Virgin Spring, Seven Seal. It's like all these others, right? The one about with the sisters, the sign. I forget what that one was called, but it's like it was very relieving. It was very and plus it's beautiful. They're like, it's poetry in front of you, his visuals are just amazing. Yeah. And then later I saw more of his movies, earlier movies inclusive. And I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I got a divorce from him. I said, that's enough.
Too much.
No, it's like, thank you. I thanked him, because he helped me navigate through the things that people don't talk about. So,
is there anything that you'd want to ask him?
Well, it'd be so, it wouldn't be about anything deep. It's just like having coffee with him, like a conversation about, I don't know, location. What's his favorite movie? Yeah, but because I saw interviews with him, and he seemed like someone that put it out there, but that's his work. Yeah. It's like who he is. It's like I'm curious. It's like because I do make that separation, even though that person makes it. The work doesn't mean that that's what he's like, or. I know there's some essence, of course. It's why they're great cinema. But, there's like a lot of things say things that are so simple, like having a conversation or walking with someone or not saying anything or saying something, going to an exhibit with someone or I don't know. So I thought coffee with him would be good. I just thought of someone else that I might want to, and he's still alive.
Yeah? Who would that be?
William Kentridge.
Okay. Is that an author?
No,
it sounds familiar.
No, he's from South Africa. He's this, oh my gosh, his work encompasses so much. But he has a sense of humor, I could tell. But he's serious. I mean, but his work is very warm too, even though he's maybe talking about apartheid or something. And but he's very playful in his work too. And I don't know, I've seen his work
and I'll stop there because more people will come on.
Your place here is so homey, and yet I feel like there's this trendy term that people throw around nowadays, minimalism, and then another school of thought is essentialism. And so the minimalists are like, power down everything, live very simple, just have a few things. Essentialism is like, you only have the bare necessities, but like sometimes that means having a lot of complexity, like you have a lot of stuff. And I look around your place and it gives me the studio here, like the essentialist vibe. Like you have a lot of things and it kind of has that coziness to it, but at the same time, I feel like everything has a function to it. Like there's a reason why things are there for the most part.
Well, yeah. It's, well, you know, I always, it's work, but I'm always glad it happens. It's like visitors, like you, William. Welcome. And because it forces me to clean up. I'm just stashing stuff back and forth, and leads me eventually to a run to a Salvation Army to take a couple boxes of stuff that I don't need, you know. But so I think I have less than before, but of course I have more stuff that I don't need. It's like layers, and I think about it. I mean, when you get, it's like how long. Because I see a finish line of like maybe, who knows, right? We're gonna die eventually, but it's like, where did I see it? Was it a book, a title, or what? I think it was a poem about, it's like something about, why can't the dead take the things with them? Kind of like, which because we're left behind every time someone dies. All their stuff is left behind. Plus, it doesn't have no more validity because we give this value to it, right? And once it's gone, it's like your son, your offspring, whatever, your neighbor has to deal with all that. And it's like, and I found that title or that poem really, like, yeah, it has humor too. So it's, why can't the dead take the things with them? It's like, because we have so much stuff, you know. So it's a little battle, but it's layers, and then you realize that some of those layers are not part of you. You're never going to do anything with them anymore. But you got to, like, I don't know. I have to let them go, because otherwise, I find that with artwork that I produce, there goes the tractor, my John Deere clock, and they're different tractors, the different sounds.
I noticed that, yeah, different times have subtly different engines or whatever.
Yeah, speaking of that, a friend of mine who passed away last year, he left me that clock, and so it's like, I get an example with the artwork. It's like, I'm not one to like to store it or keep it. It's like, put it out in the world, and I have to learn from that. It's like, at least with the other objects, it's like, I'm not going to use that anymore. It's like, or I had my time with this painting, as much as I liked it or still like it, but I'm already working on something else. Yeah. And I don't know, I think that keeps me fresh. And I don't need all that nostalgia anymore hanging around, because I'm not going to be able to use it anymore. It's like, life's too short. Yeah. And I mean, I have some books around that I still look at, like my, books of certain authors that I liked that I still can't get rid of. I don't read them anymore, but they're sources. Some I do, like some of Sontag's writings on essays that I like to look at still, because they still relate to what I'm doing. But a lot of work, a lot of stuff, I think, can go. Especially, I don't have much space, I think, because I'm always accumulating works on paper, paintings. It's funny because my co-op has something called a free bar. It's literally a bar, and where people put things they don't want anymore. So you see an object that was placed there, and you take it for a couple of years, and you put it back, and then somebody else takes it. It kind of goes around. You see it after 5 years, they go, it's back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I guess, a pro of living in a community, large community.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I was talking about your stuff is really to ask also, like, a very popular question by a popular podcaster. I know you mentioned Joe Rogan earlier. Another podcaster person / writer is a person named Tim Ferriss. I think he actually lived in San Francisco. I don't think he does anymore, though. He lives in Texas. There's a question that he asks that I love, and it's what is a something that you've bought like in the last year? It doesn't need to be a year, but like sometime in the not too distant past for less than, say, like $100 that was a really positive impact on your life. Is there anything that comes to mind?
I acquire so much free
Yeah.
that I find.
Free will count under $100.
Well, it wasn't in the last year. There's one guy that still makes me happy. I don't know if I can get up and get it, but it's...
I can grab it if it's within
I-
sight. Or if you don't want to, you can also leave
I
it.
don't know, but I just wanted to think about, I'm cheating because it's not 1 year. But I always get an object, like every time it's like July, because it's my anniversary with my girlfriend. So I always find an object, and sometimes I write on it. Like I have a duck up there that I bought in, where was it? Capitola.
Oh, nice.
And so I bought the duck. I remember we were like leaving town already. And I go, shoot, we got to go back. It's like, so I went back and got the duck. And it was like, what, $5 or something, $10 at this thrift store. And so that was Piero, who's this guy that swings around that we bought in Buenos Aires in the flea market.
Oh, nice. Is that a marionette string puppet?
Right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he does like somersaults. He's already been repaired, so he's been operated. So and then there's other little objects. I just picked up. It was a free one. My oldest brother died last year, and he was a baseball player all his life.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And but you know, it's I liked him. He was a good guy, and always in San Diego in that part in Tijuana. And anyway, but I got his trophy, one of his trophies, because remember as a kid he pitched 2 no-hitters in this semi-pro league, and I was fortunate enough to get his trophy when I went down there last year. So, you know, and those things I'll keep. There's other things that can keep going. It's just that I find a lot of stuff. I have an eye for stuff. Yeah. I think it was like growing, that family that I befriended in high school who sold antiques and do flea market stuff that I keep an eye out. I also, anyway, I'm going to stop there, okay, because there's more objects.
Maybe I spoke too soon, actually. And now I look around, you're maybe a little bit past essentialism, but I wouldn't categorize you as anything close to a hoarder or anything like that.
I got to watch out for that.
No, I mean, you have clear walkways here. This is fine. And as an artist, honestly, to have a lot of variety inspiration in physical form, I think is important. So.
Yeah, no, but definitely keeping the space open is important.
Yeah.
Because it transforms. Like right now, it's transformed into our studio, recording studio, and
you got this nice table popped up.
Yeah, it's a nice working table. It's interesting the idea of podcast that you said it's more informal, and it does loosen you up just having that in mind. You know.
Yeah, like not all the questions, not all your answers need to be like eloquent or like, you know, super thought out or clear even. You know, it's more of like jazz. It's like, you know.
Yeah, and I've been watching some really good podcasts right now with this. Mostly guys that work in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll send you a link of that because one guy was all about managing time and being an artist and different stuff. Some doctor has written lots of books.
Oh, sounds cool. Yeah, send me a link.
Yeah,
I'll check it out. Cool. So we are on the final page here. Just some questions, and these are like the fun miscellaneous questions, just kind of random. What the hell? Toss it in there just to keep things a little interesting.
Okay.
What's an uncommon experience that was so positive for you that it makes you sad to know that most people will not experience it?
Probably getting kidnapped. Joke. What? I mean, I was kidnapped, but or sequestered, whatever, right? Taken for a ride, how's that? But that's not something I want people to experience.
Okay. Although that's fascinating. I mean, if you want to go into that, by all means.
That's for another podcast.
Okay.
More detail, more personal. But
okay.
No, that was a hard one because I saw it on the notes that you sent me to consider. And the only thing I could think of was something I experienced. I don't know if people want to experience this because it could be kind of creepy. When I lived in Humboldt, Humboldt was a good school for being alone. It's like I got to know myself better. I got to be able to be alone without like feeling like I needed someone or some stimulus. It's like I could choose it when. It took a while. I think it was just the physicalness over there. It's the nature and the rain and the fog, and people live separately, and so that was good. And so I remember I met someone at the theater. I was working on the theater, building the sets and stuff. And this person walks in with her daughter and this Italian woman, and she was going to design the puppet stage because that's her thing, marionettes and things. And anyway, I was really like intrigued by her. We became friends eventually, and she lived like inland, like in the Lost Coast.
Oh, cool.
And in a ranch. It was a ranch, living with her son and her daughter at the time. And I lived in some other town, Fortuna, I think, or Ferndale. I moved around those two towns. Okay. And I experienced telepathy with her. It was just like, I knew when she was going to be in town, the puppet lady, the marionette woman. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that happened. And I think it just being in tuned with yourself, it was just, I can't even explain it. Mm. But I knew when she was going to be in town. And so we'd have these encounters, and I felt like we were communicating. Like, this is crazy. But, I mean, I've done different things to, I read Don Juan, and I've done some, mushrooms, and LSD is one that I recommend, but not in the city. Mm. It's just going back to the opening up the doors of perception, the thing with William Blake and others who've gone through that road of, mm-hmm.
Sorry to interrupt, but for those who aren't familiar with Don Juan's teachings, would you mind just kind of giving a brief summary of him and what he was about?
A little bit. Don Juan was this brujo in the north of Mexico. And I think he was a teacher or a professor from UCLA or somewhere. He went down to know this, to meet Don Juan. And that's when he started, I think, through the teachings of Don Juan, going through a journey of self-discovery, but also of eating, hallucinogenics and going through trips and being tested. And it's like what Campbell would say, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell. And anyway, I read those books, and which was kind of cool. I liked them, especially because my mother was from that region that Don Juan was. My mother was from a ranch. She was a country girl, and she had a lot of stories. And so that was like enlightenment, opening up your mind, because we see things, there's parallel worlds, depends how you see it. But you now hear about, what is that, physics, where there's several things going on at once.
Quantum mechanics?
Yeah. So that also gives you an insight of that there's more. There's like, but when you turn, it stops. You don't see it, but it's going on. And so it's like opening up, I think. And so I felt like that telepathy experience was a point where I was able to open up.
Did you intentionally try to have a telepathic experience, or it just kind of happened?
It happened. It just like came, and but I think I set myself up because I spent so much time alone that I had a job, but then after that it was there's a lot of space, and I moved around a little bit, but I had a motorcycle, I had a car, because and so I wouldn't stay in one place. I'd go to the river, go to the forest, go to the ocean, or even in my house where I was, like in the middle of some ranches, I was renting a place.
Yeah.
So
that's really that does sound like an interesting, possibly. What was your description of it? Creepy experience to have?
Well, yeah, it's odd because you don't, it's like I wasn't expecting it, but I was open to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's something every artist should try at least once? It could be, it could be related to art, or it could be unrelated to art. It's kind of an open-ended question. Someone who's trying to just be the best artist that they can be. Maybe something that you experienced that unexpectedly had a strong impact on your art, your process.
Well, I don't know. It just seems like I would say it sounds corny and cliche. So, but okay. I was in Pasadena driving around, and I stopped at this antique store, and there was this old guy in there, and I wonder if I look like that now, but then, and he just repeated something that I've heard over, and that's just follow your heart. That sounds like it's kind of goes, because I was a big Joseph Campbell, student, I guess. He'd say it in different ways. Follow. It's not the easiest path, but it's your path, and it's. I like that other cliche that says, or saying that if you try to be somebody else, well, too late. It's already taken. It's like you gotta be. I don't know. There's a lot of trust. You have to be. I think
avoid at a youth, because at youth we're so we think we could, we're all powerful, and we are. We have a lot of power. When you're younger, you do, but it's just like, what do you do with it? And so it's like you could like burn it up, or which you have a lot to burn, but it gets less and less. So I don't know, it accumulates. So I think principally, follow, if there's a spark, follow it. Because those signs may not appear again if you get too much in the norm or the status quo of things that prevent you. And then you'll just be frustrated. It's like there's nothing worse than a frustrated person or a sour person. It's like, you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that.
Yeah, I think I've encountered a few of those in my life.
They're not fun to hang around with.
What is your relationship with your dreams?
Well, it's interesting. I've only seen one therapist in my life, and in two occasions. One in Mexico City. It's this older woman. She's like this professor. She's retired now, but she's still practicing. And I only went to see her because a girlfriend took me to her shrink, and that was her. And I stopped seeing the girlfriend, but I kept seeing the therapist, and we became friends. And it was mostly just to help me with my feeling of intolerance and, drinking too much or breaking up with my long-time girl, whatever I was going through. And she kind of helped. And so and when I'd go back to Mexico City, because I moved, we'd meet for coffee, but it wasn't like a therapy session or anything. Or she'd come up. She was a sexologist, and she was like in I don't know, symposiums and things. But it wasn't until I decided, okay, I met a girl, I want to have a relationship with her and work at it, because I haven't been good at this. So it's like, I thought, how am I going to do this? It's like, okay, well, why don't you call Selma up, or, say, hey, Selma, I have this thing. Could you help me with it? It's like, I want some tools here to build something. And so it was working with her. I mean, I had always written things down. I had a log or something, occasional, but it was with her that we did it more consciously, and then she would interpret my dreams.
Okay.
And then I realized it's been something I've been doing anyway, because I wrote things down. A lot of times it was like this feeling of anxiety, and in the dream, I'd start saying things and be able to wake up or somehow snap out of it and just write down whatever happened, and then later see if I could translate into something that I could use. And it seems like it only happens of very intense moments, and so things are fine right now. Intensity is elsewhere, not in my personal survival, So that's how I've seen dreams. School.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
She was like
Jungian?
a Jungian.
Jungian, yeah.
School.
He's kind of the dream, the dream guy, right?
Jungian.
One of them.
One of them. Certainly has to, yeah.
He's kind of the dream guy, right?
One of them.
One of them.
Certainly has to, certainly, he's a good one.
If you could choose one piece of art for everyone on Earth to spend alone in a room for an hour, is there a work of art that comes to mind?
There's just so many, and so many people have different, I don't know if the word's called necessity, because a lot of times you don't even know you need it till you see it or experience it. So that's a hard one. It's because of absolute, there's really none. No
particular, I don't know, it's like, it would have to be something very basic, like the sun or something. Don't stare at it, but acknowledge it, feel it. See, that's the part of the experience. And it's like, if you already know that art isn't necessarily the Mona Lisa, it can be other things. And that's when you can experience it on a regular basis. And if and you have to pay for it or become a member. I mean, I'm a member of some museums, and I don't mind it, especially because I could take friends to the museum and things like that. But no, it's like walking into the perfume bottle shop. It's like it's waiting for you. If you, I don't know, if again, it's like opening up. There's a possibility there. But one, it's like, there's just so many that come to mind. It's like, earth art is very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Or watching a good movie is like, wow. Or reading, a story that can just leave you. And so it's like, I think if someone, I think we just need to be open, and I keep saying that, but
I guess worth repeating.
Yeah, but putting yourself in that place, if you're like, have any type of curiosity, go with it, at least to understand it, and you'll understand a little more about yourself. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think that's a good place to stop. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good place, but I've enjoyed this. It's a good opportunity to talk about things. A lot of times artists we close up, or we don't exercise the the language.
Yeah. No.
words.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the people who are watching or listening, is there anything? Well, actually, first, is there anything else that you wanted to say? I mean, I could just leave you the floor if there's anything you wanted to add as a final message, or.
Not really, because we've talked a lot about it, a lot about things, and it's also like one thing I don't like about Hollywood is they don't trust the public. They have to impose some story, right? That's already been told, and you just gotta respect you guys. So I'm giving you guys a break, because I'm sure you guys have a lot to say too. So. Thank you, William.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. And for people, finally, where can people find you if they're interested more in seeing your art, and where you live online?
Okay, well, hit my name. It's between me and this Colombian actor that we have, and this photographer. So it's like, but painter, artist, Javier Manrique, and that's the name. And Instagram is FrescoManiac, and you could find me there, or that'll connect you. There's a website I have, which I change around a little bit every so often, and that's Javier Manrique Art. And but I'm also in other websites. But once once you get in there in the internet, it just leads you to the other place. And if you want, you can also sign up for my MailChimp. If you send me a message through my website, like where it says "Contact Me," and I could sign you up for my bulletin that comes out once every 2 months.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So.
Nice. And Manrique is Javier is spelled as it normally is, and Manrique is Manrique.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And Javier is with a J, not an X.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Javier. And it's Javier Manrique Art. And that'll get you to my website.
Great.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, again, yeah. Thanks for taking the time. Cool.
All right. Thank you, Willie.
you doing? Are you busy?
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Oh, okay.
I'm good, and at the same time impressed by your energy levels.
You're probably a good night's sleep. I was talking to a friend yesterday in Mexico City.